I'm disappointed that the administration should have this issue of Iran's terrorism in the region, of their attempts at regional domination on the table as part of the nuclear talks, because you cannot divorce the two of them or you're missing, really, Iran's goals in the region.
New Hampshire Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte criticizing the nuclear talks going on between the U.S. and Iran. As we continue on America's Forum, Miranda, it's worth noting Iran and the United States are beginning yet another day of these talks as both countries try to find common ground for a possible deal.
Meanwhile, the relationship, some would say, between the U.S. and Israel is just getting worse after an unprecedented move by President Obama. The president has declassified now documents from 1987 about Israel's nuclear program, adding tension to what some would describe as an already strained relationship.
Well, our next guest has described it thusly. Joining us now with more on this story, Alan Dershowitz, professor of law at Harvard Law School. He's also the author of this book, Terror Tunnels, the case for Israel's just war against Hamas. And we note for the record, we're rejoined by Ellis Hinniken from Newsmax, New York. Alan, I got to ask you straight up. This declassification, is this getting back at the Prime Minister for his joint address to Congress?
Well, it looks like part of a pattern. They describe Israel's nuclear program, but they blacked out French, Germany, and other countries. It seems vindictive and deliberate. It's also very stupid. Let me tell you why. President Obama claims to be interested in non-proliferation, and the reason that Israel for years has never officially commented on its nuclear program is precisely to avoid proliferation. I mean, if Israel starts talking about its nuclear program, or if the United States starts talking about Israel's nuclear program, it will put political pressure on some of the other countries in the region to develop nuclear weapons. So it's not only nasty, it's counterproductive. It goes against President Obama's policies. President Obama is being so petulant and petty in trying to get revenge against Netanyahu that he's even willing to undercut his own anti-proliferation program in order to achieve it. This has really gotten to a point where the United States policy in regard to Israel is not only anti-Israel, but it's against the interests of Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Egypt, the Emirates, others in the region, and it has to stop. Grow up. The administration has to grow up and put this anger behind them and start having a policy.
Now, Alan Dershowitz, I understand why Israeli politicians don't want information released, and no politicians ever want things released, even when they are, as in this case, 30-year-old documents on a topic that the entire world understands that Israel is a nuclear power. But aren't we better off in the Middle East and around the world just recognizing the truth here? I mean, Israel has these weapons. Their enemies say, hey, if Israel has them, don't we have a right to have them? And now we're in a situation where we might actually be able to make some progress negotiating a deal with Iran, who we shouldn't trust, but we would be much better off if there was some kind of structure here, wouldn't we be?
Absolutely not. I think it's absolutely the wrong approach. Everybody knows Israel has nuclear weapons, but there's a big difference between knowing and pushing your face in it. The United States is now saying to the Emirates and to Saudi Arabia, now you officially know what you unofficially knew.
So who are we fooling? Well, who are we fooling?
We fool a lot of people when we don't expressly say things that everybody knows. There is a virtue in subtlety. There is a virtue in non-being confrontational. And Israel has tried very hard to avoid confronting its neighbors with its nuclear program directly. And this kind of studied ambiguity has been a joint policy of both the United States and Israel. How dare the United States break it unilaterally without consulting with its ally Israel? At the very least, it required a joint consultation and a joint strategy. But to break a joint program like this sounds like it's petty, nasty, petulant, and typical of the Obama administration's attitude toward Israel in the last few months.
All right, but what's done is done. So what happens now, Alan?
Well, what happens now is it looks like we're on the way to a terrible deal. Yesterday, both the House and the Senate expressed some very grave reservations about the deal. We're now apparently letting Iran off the hook on some inspections and some issues involving centrifuges. Apparently, the United States is so anxious to get a deal that we're prepared to give the Iranians virtually everything they want. This is a bad deal. This is a deal that's being rejected by everybody but Iran and the United States, even France. When we have to rely on France to be the tough guy, there's something very wrong with our negotiating posture.
Final 10 seconds, Alan. Will this trigger a nuclear arms race now? Will Egypt and Saudi Arabia, other powers, try to get nukes?
Saudi Arabia has already said that they're trying to get nukes. This is the end of non-proliferation, and it's all Barack Obama's fault, the man who I voted for, and the man who's making a terrible mistake on nuclear policy in the Middle East.
On that note, a very candid one from Alan Dershowitz. We will thank you for your time. Again, Alan's book, Terror Tunnels, The Case for Israel's Just War Against Hamas. We're coming back with more